A few years ago, Marvel wasn't just winning the box office, it was winning culture. Every trailer felt like an event, every post-credit scene felt important. People weren't just watching Marvel movies, they were studying them. We are talking theories, breakdowns, and predictions. Fans will spend months arguing about what came next. So how did the biggest franchise on earth become something people barely talk about anymore? Don't get me wrong, Marvel is still releasing movies, still releasing shows, and still spending hundreds of millions of dollars. But somehow, nobody seems excited anymore. And the weird part is, it didn't happen overnight. Marvel didn't collapse because of one bad movie. It died from 1,000 small cuts. And the first cut happened the moment Endgame ended. For over a decade, Marvel was building toward one goal, the Infinity Saga. Everything mattered. Iron Man mattered, Captain America mattered, even smaller movies felt important because they were pieces of a larger puzzle. You weren't just watching a movie, you were watching a story that was moving somewhere. Then Endgame happened, the biggest payoff in superhero history, the culmination of 11 years of storytelling. And Marvel faced a problem no franchise had ever faced before. What do you do after you have already saved the universe? Because after Endgame, there was no obvious direction, no clear destination, no new Iron Man, no new Captain America, no central story that everyone could rally behind. And audiences felt it. The old MCU had a roadmap, while the new MCU felt like a collection of random projects. One month it was Moon Knight, then She-Hulk, then Eternals, then Miss Marvel, then Secret Invasion, then Echo, then another Disney Plus show. And eventually, audiences started asking one question: do I actually need to watch all of this? Because that's where Marvel accidentally created its second problem: homework. The old MCU rewarded attention, while the new MCU demanded it. If you missed a movie before, it wasn't a huge deal. Now, a character might disappear for years, return in a Disney Plus show, then show up in another movie, then reference events from a completely different series. Suddenly, keeping up with Marvel felt less like entertainment and more like an assignment. But even that wasn't Marvel's biggest mistake. The biggest mistake was the multiverse. Because on paper, the multiverse sounds amazing. Infinite possibilities, infinite characters, infinite stories. But in practice, it accidentally destroyed stakes. Think about it. Why should I worry about a character dying if another version can show up from another universe? Why should I care about consequences if reality itself can be rewritten? The Infinity Saga worked because everything felt permanent, while the Multiverse Saga often feels temporary. And once audiences stop believing consequences matter, the tension disappears. But maybe the biggest reason Marvel lost people is much simpler: their characters. Marvel spent over a decade making audiences fall in love with Iron Man, Captain America, Black Widow, Thor, and the Guardians. These weren't just superheroes, they were the faces of the franchise. Then after Endgame, most of them were gone, and Marvel immediately tried replacing them with dozens of new characters, all at once. The problem wasn't that the new characters were bad, the problem was that the audiences barely had time to connect with them. Instead of focusing on a few strong leads, Marvel kept expanding. More heroes, more shows, more storylines, more universes, more timelines, until the MCU became so large that nobody knew what actually mattered. And the numbers started reflecting that. Movies that would have once dominated the box office started struggling. Some Marvel releases became the lowest performing projects in franchise history, a reality that would have sounded impossible just a few years earlier. Now, to be clear, Marvel isn't dead, not even close. Deadpool and Wolverine proved audiences will still show up. Spider-Man still matters. People haven't stopped loving Marvel, they have stopped trusting Marvel. And that's a huge difference, because fans aren't asking for bigger explosions, they're not asking for more universes, they're not asking for 50 new characters, they're asking for something Marvel used to do better than anyone else: make the story feel important. Because at its peak, Marvel wasn't successful because it had superheroes, it was successful because every movie felt like it mattered.